Good afternoon, good day, good evening, Nolitha. How are you? Good, so we're here this afternoon to actually discover how to cook Nolitha's Nigerian beans, otherwise known as Nelson's Nigerian beans, where they're going to be yours going forward. So the very first thing you do is apologise for actually getting something wrong. So I'm very sorry for not showing you how to make it the other day, and hopefully this will make up for it. So we start off over here by boiling the beans. And the very first thing you have to think of, the very first thing you do is you buy what's known as black-eyed beans. They're sold in lots of African food shops and West Indian food shops, and they're very easy to buy. You just rinse them in water once and you put them on the fire, put a lot of water inside them. It takes normally about the best part of half an hour to 45 minutes to boil them. What you always have to remember is that it's never the time, depending on the actual stove you're using, it could take a certain different amount of time. So what you need to do is keep tasting the beans up until when it's soft enough that you would like it. So remember, something's only cooked when you consider it to be cooked. So can we zoom in on the camera over here? Here are the actual cooked beans that we cooked earlier on that Kate and I are about to actually mix into our soup. But what's most important, so cooking the beans is very, very simple. You just put the beans in water and put it on the stove and let them cook there for at least 45 minutes. Check back every 5 minutes to make sure they have enough water inside them. So I'll slow down. Put the beans in the water for the first moment. You then pour the water out so you've rinsed the beans away. Then you then put the beans on the actual cooker and let it cook for at least half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, so it drags a lot of water in. And then we'll come onto the sauce. Okay? Part 2. So the very first thing you do is you put some, this is for making the sauce. So you put some olive oil, or whatever oil you want to use, but I recommend olive oil because it's meant to be better for you, but that might not be true. You put just a little bit inside the pot, not that much because you don't want it to be too unhealthy, perhaps a tiny bit more, and that's that. You don't smash your glass. Once you put the olive oil in the pot, you let the oil heat up a little bit. So once the oil is heated up, the first thing you want to do, no one likes the taste of just oil by itself, so you need to give the oil a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a flavour. So the very first thing you do is put some chopped up onions in the actual oil before you put anything else into it. And it's very, very simple. The chopped up onions go inside the oil, they start to get fried, then you go back to the rest of what you're doing. Now obviously the oil can be a little bit spitty, but if you're calm, it doesn't hurt that much. You get used to the feel of it over the years. And that's that.
No,
and then
be careful with the oil. If
you're cooking Nolitha's beans, what you do is you use some of this passata, because you don't want it to have any pepper. But don't mistake, you don't want it to be too hot. But what I tend to do with Nelson's beans is that where I would use passata, I now use the exact same thing that passata is, which is I don't know, a mixture of onions and tomatoes and large tomatoes, etc., etc. I've now made something at home, and then you pour it into the onions, into the frying onions in the actual pot. And when you've done so, you leave it to cook for a while. So we'll do that right now. Ready, Kate? Are we focusing on that? It can be quite scary. You have to be careful. Bingo. So we rinse that out a tiny bit. Get the stuff out of the cap. So remember, the passata and what I just poured inside the pot are exactly the same thing. It's the basis of the sauce. It is the basis of the sauce. It's the thing that makes the sauce red. It's the actual sauce itself. You're just pouring inside some onions, which have given the oil some flavour, which will then give the onions have given the oil some flavour, which then help provide a little bit more flavour to the sauce. But remember, the passata, the oil and the onions complement the passata, and we'll come to how this actually works. So the first thing you do is that you need to let the passata and the onions and the oil cook. And again, you will be able to determine when it's cooked based upon the way it looks, based upon the way it tastes, based upon the way it looks, and based upon the way it tastes. And then I'll show you the final trick of the trade. But this process, depending on how much you actually have in the actual pot, could normally take somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes or so. But if it's just a small amount that you have in the pot, it might even take as quick as 5, maybe 10 minutes. So always keep an eye on it, because you don't want the pot to get burnt, and you don't want the food, because the pot gets burnt, the food will get burnt too. So keep an eye on it. Remember, oil inside the pot, heat the oil a little bit, put the chopped onions inside the heating oil to give it a little bit of flavour, then put the passata in it and let it all cook for a while. And then I'll come back and show you how to finish it off. Ready? Hello again, Nolitha, part number 3. So now, by now, which should have been maybe about 20-30 minutes later on, 20, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes later on, your sauce should have cooked up to the point where it looks very, very reddish. Come see? So if you look inside there, you can see it looks very reddish. I'll put the thing on so you can get it. So it's gone from being the orangish colour of the natural passata, or reddish, to a lot more deeper red. Now this is a mixture of tomato puree and a couple of other ingredients that I would put in my version of Nigerian beans, but you probably would have put in yours, because you're using passata. You don't need to put in tomato puree, given that it's already tomatoey enough. So, but there might be one or two other things, but I tend to mix this with a bit of salt. So remember, given that you've not put your salt in the tomato puree, you would have to put it directly into this. You have to put your salt, maybe other herbs that you might want to put into it here and there, and it all goes into it. Voila!
What sort of herbs would you put in?
Whatever herbs you want to put in, maybe a bit of garlic here or there, bit of thyme, whatever herb that you think would complement it or make it taste better from your perspective. You've got to experiment with these things. Trial and error. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, but when you get it right, you remember that will push you to go further the next time around. Just keep trying with these things. But think of all the herbs you can think of, and think of, will this taste nice in my beans? Yes or no? If yes, then give it a try. If no, then don't. Something I also like to add to. In fact, I'll let you in on a secret right now. This is the secret weapon to making sure these things taste nice. These are known as Maggi cubes. They have been in every Nigerian kitchen for however many years, I don't know, at least the last 50 years, or however long I've been born and my dad was cooking or my grandmum was around. They always use these things. They're called Maggi cubes. You just, in the beans that you would cook for your size, I would suggest that you put just the one inside. So you crumble it into it. It's just a version of stock that adds a bit of extra flavour. It gives it that oomph.
And is it vegetarian?
Yes, it is vegetarian. Okay? So then once everything goes inside, you mix it all together to create a nice little paste, a nice soup, a nice sauce cake. Can you come over? Come see, so you mix everything all together. So you see, here's your tomato puree bits. It's all mixing in together bit by bit. It goes on and round and round and round and round and round. And this is the final stage of the cooking. Remember that bubble up a little bit. If you're like me, you like a bit of kick to your food, you add a bit of jalapenos to it, so it gives it a little bit more pepper. But something I do know that you like adding to it is sweet corn. So you have to have your sweet corn into it. But remember, sweet corn doesn't take long to be boiled at all. So sweet corn cooks almost instantly. So you don't really need to boil it beforehand. You can add it directly into the cooking sauce, which is what I'm about to do. You add your sweet corn into it. Voila! Make sure you give it a good shake so you can get everything out. Get your money's worth. If you want to, you can add a bit of liquid seasoning, Maggi cube too. That's the Maggi liquid seasoning, should you wish to add it. Mix it all together again. So now you've got the jalapenos inside here, but remember, you don't want jalapenos because it's too spicy, although I recommend you should be trying spices from every now and then too. Mix everything together, mix into a smooth paste, and come take a look right now. And there you have it, and this, my little friend, is the final part of it all, where you add, remember, beans are not beans without beans. Okay.
Catchphrase.
Then you add the beans to it. Once you've added the beans to it, that is it. Then you mix the beans together into the actual sauce that you've cooked. Mix it, really roll it in together. Make sure it mixes. Make sure it mixes in. Then you get in your cake. Make sure it mixes in. Make sure it really mixes in. Keep turning it around up until when no bean is left unread. As in no bean is not uncovered. Mix and mix and mix and mix and mix. Off you go, off you go, off you go. If at that moment it's too thick, you add a little bit of water to it. Just to cool it down a little bit. So remember, you want to give it some time on the stove so that the beans and the soup become one. And you mix everything all together. So just add maybe a small one of these funny glasses into it. Voila. As in, given the amount the amount of beans I'm cooking, I'll use this full glass. If it was you, I'd suggest maybe 1/4 of it, of this glass. And then, again, you go back, mix it all together, up until it's at a level of thickness that you are happy with. So it's not too runny. If it gets too runny for you, keep it on the stove. Don't let it burn, but just keep cooking it because it will get thicker by the moment. And then yeah, there you go. And that's it. Nolitha's Nigerian beans. Ready, I hope, for International Day. I'm sorry we didn't meet International Day, but we'll do it next year.
What about the yam?
Nolitha doesn't like yams, does she?
I think we've had.
Well, if you do like yams,
Monkey likes yams.
If you do like yams, then yams are very simple. You just peel them, you buy the yam, you cut it up into fairly thick slices of this much. Oh, the yams are done. You cut into fairly thick slices, and then you cut into two, and then you boil it for maybe about, I don't know, it doesn't take that long. Yam is very easy. The yam's about as easy as cooking as a potato. And that, my friend, is it. So Kate, can we come over this again? You can see it's now cooking.
It's delicious.
Yep, it's all cooking, it's all coming together like clockwork. You keep mixing it, make sure that all the flavours, all the Maggi cubes, the salt, the spices, everything you put in, it all goes everywhere. All is everywhere, it's all in the pot. It's a sensation in the mouth. And that is pretty much it. I really hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.